Hey guys, we're back again with another episode of How to Dominate Your City with Local Area Leaders. I'm Jason Richardson. This is Laura Richardson, my wife, with Rowe Real Estate. And today we have an awesome guest. We have Adam McCluskey here. He is with the PT Initiative. He is a doctor of physical therapy. So Adam, thank you for joining us. We're very excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we basically have a whole 6 degrees separation kind of thing going on here. I know his wife's probably a lot better than I know him, but have heard nothing but great things, both from the community, his following, and of course the wife has said many good things as well.
All right, so let's jump into, first of all, you run and own the PT Initiative. So we'll get into that in just a minute, but first let's tell our guests and our viewers a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in the area, and just about your family, anything you like to do for fun too.
Yeah, so again, my name's Adam McCluskey. I grew up in North Carolina, so I actually spent most of my life in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah. Winston-Salem here.
All right, there we go. Yeah, so I grew up in Greensboro, lived there most of my life, did undergraduate there at UNCG too. And then, so I actually moved to Raleigh, I guess after undergraduate, moved there about a year or two later. And so then about 6 months after I moved to Raleigh, I got accepted into physical therapy school. And so moved out to California. So tried out the West Coast for a little while, and then we ended up landing back here in Raleigh. So we've been here just a couple years now since finishing physical therapy school.
Awesome.
So do you feel like the culture difference between California and North Carolina, that's kind of lended itself to your business? Or do you think that was kind of a tough thing to go from one to the other?
No, I wouldn't say it was tough. It's definitely, there's differences for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, just kind of my personality. I like kind of mixing things up a little bit. So I loved it out there. I think if we didn't have, we have a lot of family close by in the North Carolina area, but yeah, I loved kind of everything about it out there. The beaches were close. There's plenty to do, especially if you're outdoorsy. There's kind of endless things to do. But that was one thing we liked about Raleigh was I thought it was, a kind of a perfect size city. It's a big enough city where it's not just overwhelming, but there's a lot of opportunity. We've known a lot of really cool people here. And so it kind of actually was a pretty good transition. The traffic's nowhere near Orange County, California, but,
or the property tax.
Yeah, exactly. That was, that played a big role too. So yeah, I'm just glad to be back here in Raleigh. And it was, enjoyed our time out there, but I do like Raleigh, and I think me and my wife will be here for a while.
Yeah, Raleigh definitely has a different taste. I'm originally from Atlanta, so I totally get that with the traffic. You're home when you get stuck.
So let's talk about physical therapy for a minute. You've done this for quite a few years now. You've got a great following online, which we'll get into. But when did you know that you wanted to go into that field?
So even in undergraduate, I knew that I'd always kind of enjoyed being active and working out, but there was a couple different routes, and I wasn't really sure which to go. I just knew that, whether that was fitness and personal training or the more medical physical therapy route, I just knew that physical therapy required a lot more time and schooling and effort and all those things. And so once I graduated undergrad, I kind of, let me go the personal training, strength coaching route. So I did that for a few years. Physical therapy was always kind of in the back of my mind, but I wasn't 100% sure I was ready to dedicate another 3 years and a lot of money and everything to do it. And so did a lot of the coaching and training for a while. And I kind of got to the point where I kind of took a look back at all the people I was working with, and they all had kind of old injuries, and they would tell me, I can't do this anymore. My PT or my doctor said I can't do this. And I kind of enjoyed working with those people instead of just let's get a good workout. I was over here trying to problem solve. Well, why can't they do this exercise? And how can we address it? And it kind of clicked. I was like, that's kind of what I would be doing as a physical therapist. So maybe that's a sign that this is really what I want to do. And so it honestly has been, and we can talk about it more, but it's been a cool blend to be able to bring that background in fitness and coaching into the world of physical therapy, and kind of having both of those things together, I think has contributed to my business today too. So yeah, it was a little bit of a journey. I know a lot of people will finish undergrad and go right into graduate school. I took about a 4-year gap between that. So, I look at it, sometimes I'm kind of like, well, if I'd have started earlier, where would I be now? But definitely, I don't regret that time. I think it's actually helped things too.
So for some of the people that don't know, I guess, physical therapy, they may think of like one area. Can you kind of explain for physical therapists, the different areas that you can go into for work?
Yes. So that's a great question. The big thing probably of why I do so much putting things online is just to let people know. Some people have no idea what physical therapy actually is, or they've had one specific experience with it and they assume that all physical therapy is like that. It's interesting because it's a very general field. So when I take my board exams to get my license, you have to be very knowledgeable about a lot of different aspects. So whether you're working in a hospital with someone who just had a knee surgery 6 hours ago, or they've had a heart bypass and you're trying to get them up out of bed, that's very different from what I do on a daily basis. I'm seeing people that are pretty high level. So they're CrossFit athletes, weightlifters, those sorts of things. And we're kind of troubleshooting. They have pain with a clean and press, at a certain amount of weight. And so those are kind of completely different ends of the physical spectrum, but it's pretty cool. And that's what I like about this field is we can kind of go different routes. So there's physical therapists that work specifically with children, specifically in the hospital, specifically with older adults. I did have the experience of working in a place for a while in school where we worked with stroke patients and more neurological injuries and things like that. And so that's one thing I do love about the field is it's so diverse and there's so many aspects you can go into it. But yeah, I've always kind of gravitated towards the sports performance aspect of it. And so that's kind of where my background and then my interest always kind of took me that way.
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation, and that hits perfectly, like on all levels. That's kind of what I was wanting to get across, because I think most people who maybe they have a surgery and they're in the hospital and then they get like you said, a day with a physical therapist, and they think that's probably what it is. But personally, physical therapy has been the best thing for me. My mobility is terrible. People don't think, oh, you can go see a physical therapist to have hands-on mobility experience, and like you said, do something with like athletic training, and that's where it's been like beneficial for myself. So I'm glad that you hit on all that.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up, CrossFit aspect, because that's definitely something that I do as well. And I know that that's probably one of the toughest things most athletes have, is that they're not going to push past that plateau that they thought they hit, because it's a mobility issue. It's not necessarily a strength issue per se. It's not even mental at that point. You just got to work towards it. So what does your platform look like? Let's say, for example, an athlete wants to come to you and they're trying to seek assistance on mobility. What should they do? Like, what's the steps that it would take?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is just to I always think it's important to kind of, get a little background. So if you want to kind of know a little bit more about how I treat and work with people and kind of what I do, check out my Instagram page. It's at the PT Initiative. And that's where I post pretty much every day new content of just kind of, it's going to be certain exercises or a little bit of snapshot of me working with different people. So you can kind of get an idea of what you're getting into there.
Way. I know I'm interrupting, but I was telling Adam before we started, I stalk it all the time. I use it for my personal benefit. So great content.
No, I appreciate that. It's good. I put it out there. I want people to save it and use it and take it and everything. So, but yeah, that's kind of a good place to start to get an idea for it. But it's interesting that you bring up, specifically with CrossFit and those things. I think I've kind of found, you kind of get an idea that when people come out of physical therapy school, a lot of people want to work with athletes and different areas like that. But I kind of found that, in a sense, in the medical community, the weightlifting and CrossFit athletes are a little bit underserved, I feel like, and I think maybe the types of workouts and the sport's a little bit misunderstood. And I think people view it as this, all out 110%, you're guaranteed to get injured. And I don't agree with that, because I enjoy those workouts. And, I kind of come from the camp of whatever your movement-based goal is, or whatever you want to be active and you enjoy, let's come beside you and help you get there, and not just say that you chose the wrong sport. And I feel like I've just talked to a lot of people that come to see me, and sometimes they're even scared to tell a medical professional that they do CrossFit. And I just don't think that's how it should be. No one, if someone's doing a marathon, most people don't say you should never run, but if it's a weightlifting or CrossFit athlete, they'll get kind of shot down a little bit. And so I definitely, with my business, I want to be someone who kind of comes alongside someone that's in those areas, because I just want to help someone find solutions. I'm not going to tell you stop doing your sport. We're going to say, okay, where's the movement breaking down? We may need to pull back a little bit, but here's what we're going to do to get you back to that point. And so to kind of that's kind of what I like to focus on. And I do have a passion for that type of, active athlete type of person.
So if let's say I'm a patient and I come across your Instagram profile and I'll find your website and I'm somebody local and not local, because I know you work with all aspects, which I'd like you to hit on that part as well. But if I come to your website and I want to work with you, what would I do initially? Do I get on there? Is there a consultation or something I fill out?
Yeah. So, and we can kind of talk about how this plays into the whole pandemic right now. But
yeah,
this was even something.
Yeah, while you're
okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. So even before, and obviously no one saw this coming, but even before all this craziness happened, I was still doing some remote consultations, so more like telehealth remote PT work with people kind of all over the place, just because they would find my Instagram page and they would say, hey, I like your stuff. I want to work with you. What can we do? And obviously they're not going to fly in here. So we go over a lot of things. We do some coaching online and we set up video sessions, and I basically have them go through a screening process, and we kind of like an evaluation like we would do here. And so I've been doing that for, probably a year and a half or so. And then all of the, the COVID pandemic hit, and everyone, all the businesses and gyms shut down, and pretty much all you had was whatever weights you have at your house and Zoom,
Right.
And so, everyone is doing more home workouts and everybody's place was closed. And so there's been a huge influx in remote consultations that I've been doing. And that's a majority of my days and majority of the weeks are filled with those remote consultations. So
cool.
That's a good place to start. If my business is open, so my in-person clinic I did just a few weeks ago kind of start to see people again. But for a while there, in the heat of it, I was just doing remote consultations all online. And honestly, it was great. It was something I was doing a little bit before and I liked it, but I've really liked the fact that I was doing more of it. And I think people are a little more open to doing things remotely online.
Yeah,
I think it was always something of, I think there was this stigma of physical therapy has to be in person.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's certain situations where I feel like that's true. There's a lot of benefit from seeing someone and having hands-on, but a lot of people, especially the more active population, a lot of stuff, you just need some guidance. It's a movement pattern's off, or your mobility's off here, or you just need some guidance on when to add things back in. And a lot of that can be done remotely. And so it's just been cool to kind of see the aspect of visually and communicating with someone, just two people communicating and really listening to each other and those problems. Like that's a huge aspect of what I do. And it's kind of brought that to the forefront. And it's brought a lot of things where I've, kind of seen where other things I have to focus on. And then I think other people have seen some validity of, a lot of things can be done remotely. And it's just been cool to kind of, I've had to shift a lot of things in my business because of it, but it's kind of opened some cool opportunities for sure.
We've seen a lot of people we've talked to recently. Everybody's talking about the, adapting to what's been put in front of us because it hit us out of nowhere. But as you were saying, there's validity brought into it, and there's now you have a hybridization almost of a business model. But everything's gonna be going online, before too long. A majority of it will. There'll still be some brick and mortar, but it's good that you're able to adapt and still see those patients and everything on that as well.
Well, and I think you're breaking the mold. You mentioned the word kind of like stereotyping about PT in general, and I think a lot of people envision this very complicated facility that they have to access. So you're talking brick and mortar, but also they need access to a lot of different things that they wouldn't readily have available in their house. And I think that you have definitely shifted that mindset to using what you have, because I know a lot of gyms have had to do something very similar. Like rather than having all of the weights present, they've had to put stuff in a backpack and lift that instead. So I think that that's good, the adaptability for sure.
So let's get to this Instagram account. The PT Initiative, which, let's see, there it is right there, 353,000 followers right there. I think that's probably a record for our show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us about how you started. You started the page and you were just putting your content out there. I'm sure that, it was slow here and there. You got some people following, and then, now you've got verified accounts that follow you, people reaching out, you're getting a customer base, and now you have over 300,000 people. So what's the evolution of that been like?
Yeah, and honestly, it's something I think, whether it's business owners or even just anybody who sees that, usually the question is kind of like, how do you get that many people to follow? It's usually just kind of like how is that even possible? And, I don't say that in like a prideful way, but it's kind of funny, just people's response when they hear that number. And it's just been an interesting kind of progression. I think when I first started putting content out there, it was more of, like I mentioned earlier, I have a background in training, and then I have all this new, knowledge and kind of all through the research and all this stuff I learned through physical therapy school. I was like, I feel like this would be cool to some stuff that I wish I knew before I'd come to school. Like, here's some really cool stuff I've learned. I want to put it out there. I think other people might find it valuable. And I started doing that across a couple different platforms. So this has been about 2.5 years or so. And so I started putting stuff out there, and I would put it on, Facebook, Instagram, a couple different ones. And Instagram, I would put something up and it'd get a lot more engagement, and more people would reach out and comment and things like that. I was like, well, this is where people like my stuff, so I'm just going to keep doing that. And I kind of just, and this is honestly the biggest thing, is I just kept doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's times where it's like, I had 3 posts in a row that feel like they bombed. And it's like, people are over it. I'm just gonna, I don't have time. And then the tough thing is, a lot of times early on when you make it, you're not making money on it. And so you're like, man, I'm putting all this time and just pouring my soul into these posts, and no one cares and no one's paying me anything. So most people give up. And so that's really the thing, is you have to just stick it out, and you have to, keep refining things and doing that. And so I kind of would just assess my last month of posts and see, what did people respond to? What do people want to hear more about? And so I would kind of post more on those things. And it's just kind of a mix of, literally, I would think, who's on the other end how would they absorb this information, and how could it benefit them? And so I just continue to kind of with that mindset, is keep putting stuff out there. And it honestly, when I started it, I had this idea that 20,000 people would literally, it was like a brain explosion. Like, that would be so many people, I can't even imagine it. But yeah, it's just kind of grown and grown, and then you just it becomes a new normal almost.
So have you turned off your notifications yet for when you post, and when you see all the likes or the hearts or anything on Instagram? Or do you watch it when you post it?
No, my phone battery would be dead in an hour.
Right? Yeah, that's funny. No, you're exactly right, though. I mean, this is the generosity generation that we're in. It's content. Everybody is putting out content that needs it, that's good at it. And most people quit before it's too soon on that part. But you're looking to get reciprocation somewhere on that. But at the same time, you're doing it for everybody else.
Something else that I noticed that you had out there was an ebook. Is that something that you are going to consistently keep doing? Was that like a one-time thing?
Yeah, so I'll kind of put out there, and I can talk to, if you're not a business owner, and then you're a business owner. So I'll give you kind of like some, I guess, both sides of it. So yeah, I do. I have a free ebook, and then I have a free kind of video course. So I always want to have I want to put out as much content as possible. And so I do want my content to be available for people. And I guess it's just been cool to see people over the world that have told me they don't have access to a lot of good practitioners or information.
Right.
And this stuff has been kind of life-changing. And I mean, that's why I started the whole thing. That's what my why is. And so I want to continue to put that stuff out there, but really free ebooks, and I have some paid options. And so I just want people to kind of be able to get a taste of what my content is, and kind of what my other products are like. So it's kind of like I put that ebook out there just so you can kind of see, outside of a 10-second Instagram clip, kind of get a little bit of a deeper look into working with me, what that looks like. And so again, just some more free information. And then in those free ebooks, I just have some, and through emails afterwards, I have some offers for basically ways that you can kind of get more in-depth, more engaged content from me. And so that's what I have out there. And then for my business owners, having something like that, I think, is critical. I think it's you can't just do 2 posts on social media and say, hey, give me your money. It's kind of a sense of, you have to build some trust. And giving out information kind of helps build a little bit of trust, and see, it's not like a test drive. Do I like this person enough to work with them in whatever realm that looks like, whether they're a client or a patient or anything? It's like, do I like and trust them? Do I think they can help me? And those free things usually kind of help build that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Well, so I mean, with all these different business avenues that you have, and all this content you're producing and putting out there, have you found a tough balance between business and family, or even like your personal life in general, just getting some me time? What does that look like?
Yes, it's been one of the biggest things. It was really tough up until, well, it's still kind of tough. It's just been progressions of that. But it definitely, owning your own business can can pretty much take all of your time if you let it, because you're never done. You can't really, there's not a true clocking out time, because if something's happening or not happening in the business, it's because of you and your decisions. So, that at the beginning, when I was really trying to push of just trying to build and build and build as fast as possible, I kind of put the personal life and family time, it kind of would take a hit. And so I've had to really adjust and kind of literally schedule out time of when I'm working and when I'm not working. And I think it's made me a little more efficient with my time, but it's also been healthier for that. But it really is tough. And I've talked to, a lot of other business owners, and I think they feel the same way, that it can be tough to kind of turn that off in your brain. Cause my wheels are always spinning of, here's a new project I want to do, or did I send this person an email, or, those sorts of things. There's always something to think about. And so that can be really tough, but I think just kind of scheduling that time and being really intentional about when you're doing work and when you're, trying to clock out and be with your family. But it's been one of those things where I've been trying to get better and better at it, but it's a challenge for sure.
So for people that are watching this or have interest in wanting to get into the physical therapy world, can you go through kind of start to finish of education? Like, what does it take to become a physical therapist? And start with undergrad.
Yeah, so you have to have an undergraduate degree. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in sports medicine or anything like so kinesiology is what I did with a sports medicine concentration. But you could technically have a finance degree, but there are certain prerequisites. So you have to have a 4-year degree, but then there's a lot of science classes that you'd have to have. So if you did major in finance or business or anything, you would have to go back and take a significant number of classes. So anatomy, physiology, chemistry, physics, a bunch of different biologies. So if you do kinesiology or sports medicine, you probably already have those courses. So it's the best way to go. Yeah. But then you're going to need to take the GRE, which is just a grad school entrance exam. And there's, certain different schools have different criterias for each of those sections that you'd need to hit. And then you have to have volunteer hours kind of booked out, and then you send out the applications. And so it's right now, if you went to physical therapy school, it's a doctorate degree. So it's 3 years on top of the 4 years of undergraduate. So seven years of graduate or education after high school. And it sounds daunting. And if you go look at, if you're serious about going into the field of physical therapy and you look at all these requirements, it can seem overwhelming. Because I felt that way, but it's one of those things that I think it lends itself to, if you're very, very passionate about the field. And I feel, and I've never gone through medical school to be a physician, but I feel like it's kind of a similar overlap as far as, if you don't really love it and you're not passionate about it, it'll crush you. Yeah. Because it's a lot. But if you really love it and it's what you want to do, then you kind of just do what you need to do to get it done. And so that's kind of how it felt about the application process and making it through school. It's a lot. It's like drinking out of a fire hose. They just, right, all the information all at once.
And then you got to learn the real world after it. Right?
Yeah. And then there's, if you wanted to go this route of owning your own business, then you kind of have to learn all that stuff too. But I think,
and it's not easy to get into at PT schools. You got, you have to be able, if you don't get in, to reapply for the next year and stay at it and everything. So that needs to be something you need to know up front. Not everybody gets in their first time either.
Right. That was, I think, so for my fall and spring cohort at where I went, so I went to Chapman University in California, and I think there were 1,200 applicants for 65 spots.
Yeah.
So that's it's competitive, and so I think you kind of have to apply a lot of places, to want your right, chances to be high.
Yeah. Awesome. I've got another question if you have one.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we'd like to know, do you have like a feel-good story of working with a patient, or something that, a success story that you've seen over the past few years, one that stands out to you that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of them. So, I think right, that's kind of what keeps me going a little bit was, I think a lot of times, and I'll try and narrow, there's a lot going through my head. So I'm trying to narrow one or two down, but I think the theme of the ones that I really kind of hold on to, and I love those stories, are the ones that have always felt like they're just, surgery is the only option, and it's been hurting for like 2 or 3 years, and they've tried these different things, and it's the ones that are a little bit usually more challenging. And so I'm going to try and think of a real specific one, but a lot of people I do work with have, they kind of feel like they're out of options a little bit as far as getting out of pain. And so I think the biggest thing is helping people kind of realize there are options outside of surgery. And I think that's kind of my main goal in my business, is to really help people not have to be dependent on pain medication, and then avoid unnecessary surgery. Because that's kind of a lot of the things I've seen is people have had a surgery that they never really gave the conservative care or physical therapy a good effort. And they had a surgery and they still kind of have issues 2 years later on. And, then they're kind of like kicking themselves. Did I do that for no reason? And, we can't go back and change it, but, kind of looking forward, what can we do? And so,
I mean, a surgeon's job is surgery. They're not going to say, hey, go do all this physical therapy first and everything. And that's, people need to know that option is out there, and it's not the only thing. So you definitely, in my opinion, should try all that before you actually have an elective surgery. But I think people would speak against that too.
Yeah. And, and I guess the one thing I would say, I feel, pressed to say this, because I tell my patients this a lot, is, is if you kind of feel like, you're stuck and you feel like surgery is your only option, like surgery is, unless it's an emergency surgery, which we wouldn't be, that's not what we're talking about. Like an elective orthopedic surgery, really find someone who's trained to work with someone that, that does what you do. And so there's going to be a lot of, there's a lot of other physical therapists. So if you were post-stroke, like we talked about before, I'm probably not your best person, because that's not what I really do every day. That's not, specialty that I do. But if, you're a more active person, weightlifter, CrossFit athlete, I probably am a better fit than someone who doesn't ever work with that population. So I think the big thing I would say is not all physical therapy is created equal. Find someone that works with someone that does what you do.
Sure.
And so I think that's kind of a big thing I would say. And that's what's really been cool about with the Instagram page and social media, is I've realized that people do search for healthcare and medical information on social media. And I think when it first sunk in, that kind of blew my mind a little bit, that people are literally on Instagram looking for answers to why their back hurts. And, you usually think that everyone's, they've already gone to their primary care physician or whatnot. But, and I think that's kind of been my drive, is I'm going to go where people are at. People are scrolling Instagram and their back hurts while they're working out. And I know for a fact I can help you with that. And so I'm going to put stuff up there to show you that. And so I think it's just been cool to see social media is not really this kind of phase, and it's nothing serious. I think people are looking for answers to real problems on social media, and so it's just been cool to from that aspect to see how it's kind of transformed my business, and it's kind of the foundation of it. It's where I get most of my referrals and leads and everything. So it's been cool.
So are you like the TikTok PT yet?
Yeah. I've been, I'm like the classic, like, that thing's going to die out. I've been resisting it.
I know, Gary V's pushing it hard, so.
Yeah, I know.
He's got a little move line now.
Speaking of posing questions, so you're at a dinner party. How many times do people ask you for advice or a diagnosis when you're in a large group of people?
Yeah, it tends to come up a lot. Well, but it's always one of those things where someone's like, my shoulder's been hurting a little bit. It hurt, and like, they'll tell me like, when I lift my arm overhead, it kind of hurts. Like, what is it? It's like, well, I need a little more information, and it's kind of like, my ankle hurts and it's hurt for like 10 years and I don't have any background information. It's usually those sorts of things where it's kind of tough to, if you don't have any information, it's kind of hard to give you a specific answer. But yeah, I do get asked those questions a lot. It's
like if somebody asks us what their house is worth. Like, I'm like, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, exactly. It's and that's kind of the funny thing is, and it always makes me think, and I know other people don't think about this, but it's like, if it was really that straightforward and easy, then we wouldn't really have a job, right? If the true value of your house, you could just like type in an address and it pops up, that takes a lot out of your job and mine. If you could just type in an algorithm on Google and voila, it's all solved for you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really have much to do. And so it's usually a little more nuanced than that. And so that's what I'm just trying to. I get a little more information. I can say it could be these things, but we'd have to dive in a little deeper. But
Sure.
that question comes up a whole lot, especially at family events.
Oh,
That's
I'm
fun.
sure.
Well, Adam, this has been great learning about the business itself. So we have a couple of questions that we always end with, but before we get there, is there anything that we left off that you wanted to share about the business at all that was important?
I did write down a few things. No, I think it's just been, and if there are other people and other business owners on here that, with the whole pandemic and I've kind of hit some hard points. I think what I learned myself from all of this, and so I started my in-person clinic in this past August, and so now it's been, you go all this work to build things up, and I was starting to do a lot more local networking and have all these events I was going to sponsor and all this, and then literally life got canceled, and so and it kind of throws a wrench into it, and you close down your shop, and all this stuff that you've done feels like it's just been cut off and you don't have control over it. But I think the big thing I learned from it was I kind of had to dig a little bit deeper into like my actual, like, why did I start the business? Why am I doing what I want to do? Like, what am I solving for people? And kind of really like refocus on that. And it kind of helped the transition process. So I know it was helpful to have a social media following before that, but kind of pivoting and transferring isn't always very easy to do. And I think it's easy as a business owner to feel like I just did everything right, but then a global pandemic shut me down. Well, it's just not meant to be. And I think I would encourage people, if they feel frustrated, like if you're passionate about what you do and you are helping people they still need your help, and you just kind of have to maybe find a different avenue. And I think it's been helpful for me to kind of refocus my purpose with the business. And I think I'll hopefully come out stronger on the other end. But just want to encourage any other business owners that are listening, that there's usually another way, and it's not easy. No business owner ever said it was, but I think you can kind of use this time to, I guess, refocus and kind of calibrate your business a little bit going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up like an excellent point, because when business owners are creating their business and like putting the foundations down, you always hear from a mentor or other people, like, what is your why? And people question, what do you mean, what is my why? Like, truly find out that why, because one day you're going to have to lean on that to propel yourself forward. And when this pandemic hit, I'd say 99% of those people had to go back to that point. And that's what's going to help them keep going, like you were saying.
Yeah, gotta adapt in so many different ways for sure. So we have a couple of final thoughts. These are just rapid fire questions that we ask everybody. It's not a test that we'll score you on at the end. But the first thing is, do you have a book or a Netflix recommendation for people?
Yeah, so a book that I read, and the reason I like this book, and I'll tell you why. So the book is called Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss.
Oh, love it. Yeah, I got all his stuff.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, and he's like, so especially if you're a business owner, you'll eat that up just because it's short little snippets of interviews he's had. And it's just it just feels like there's no fluff. It's all just meat content. And so if you have 5 minutes, you can read a few. If you have an hour, you can read a lot. So that was one thing that I guess more mindset wise of kind of how to view everything was helpful for me. So it's a real thick book, but it's not like you have to read all of it at once. So that's a book I would recommend for anyone.
Absolutely. That's a great one. Actually, when I was working the corporate world, I think it's right when the book came out, like several years ago, I actually sent that to my CEO at the time, and she like loves it, still reads it and everything today. So it goes from anybody that can get some good content out of that for sure. What about the next question is a favorite local restaurant or a hangout spot that you have?
I have to give it. So I do love Vitamanda is a great place, and then Brewery Bavana. I know they're kind of similar owners there, but just some restaurants. I know if you're a Raleigh person, those are some staples there. But maybe it didn't add anything new, but that's and then I'm always kind of looking for different coffee shops too. But
Ring it right into the next question.
I was going to say that leads us into our next question. How do you take your coffee? This is my question that I feel like is so important at all points of the day.
So I like hot coffee and cold coffee, but I just like coffee. I don't like to put a bunch of stuff in it. So that I really didn't start drinking coffee until graduate school, which kind of is I don't really know how I survived without it before, but I always kind of said, if I have to put a bunch of like extra stuff in it, I don't really like coffee, and I probably shouldn't drink it. But then I started just drinking black coffee just to help me wake up in the morning, and I was like, oh, this is like a superpower. So yeah, so I'm a big cold brew kind of guy. So I actually make my own cold brew here at the house,
Nice.
which is not as hard as it sounds once you kind of get a system with it. But yeah, I'm a big cold brew. But if I'm drinking hot coffee, then I'll just put a little bit of milk in it. But I try to just as close to black as possible.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Do you have, you've already given a lot of this, so if you don't have any other advice, but do you have a piece of advice for anybody looking to start their own business?
Yeah. So if you're just starting out, I think the biggest thing is, and this might be more for any kind of service based, but I think finding the people that you feel like you can provide a lot of value for. So who are those people that you can solve problems? And I think that's the biggest thing. Every business solves a problem. Anyone that's, successful and grows. So find that problem that you want to solve, that you can solve, and you're good at it. And just find those people. And if there's a market locally, then you're good to go. So really all the rest, you can figure it out. As long as you've got a market and you've got a problem you're solving, then you've kind of got the foundation for success.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now, something we also ask kind of at the end is, are there any local businesses that you want to give a shout out to, that you want to just kind of give some support to, or ones that you maybe frequent, not necessarily restaurants per se?
Anybody, and also we're always looking to add people onto our show too. But if you don't know of any, then we'll reach back out afterwards.
Yeah, well, I think you guys know them, but Creagh Furniture. That's
we've had them on before.
Yeah.
There you go. That's your
That's
one-stop shop for furniture. You gotta get a table from Jim.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. They were great interviews. We appreciate that shout out to them. All right, so go ahead. We are going to link. We got a lot of. We're going to definitely put your social media stuff up on this so everybody can find you on that. But today's been an awesome interview. We appreciate your time today, Adam. Again, this was Adam McCluskey. He's with the PT Initiative, Doctor of Physical Therapy. Anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much for your time. This was such an amazing interview. We appreciate all that you're doing for the community, both right here in Raleigh, but worldwide. Like, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yep. Well, so like I said, we'll link everything in the comments on our show notes and stuff. You guys can follow him, look at all that great content that he provides, and give him a follow for sure. Adam, we appreciate you being on today.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Absolutely.